LA.B. But me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to this Louie T Network exclusive. The Jacksonville Jaguars finally move on from disgruntled pass rusher Yannick Ngakoue. They move him for a second-round pick in the 2021 NFL Draft and a conditional 2022 fifth-round pick that could improve to as high as a third-round selection. So the Jaguars move Yannick Ngakoue to the Minnesota Vikings, who are getting themselves an elite pass rusher in the prime of his career. To me, this is a win-win for both teams involved. I'll explain as we get deeper into this breakdown. However, I do want to start with the Minnesota Vikings, who have really improved their defense drastically with this move. Now, there are a lot of questions if you're the Minnesota Vikings, if you're a fan of the Vikings or just a fan of the NFL and want to know how in the hell did the Minnesota Vikings, are they able to afford a guy like Yannick Ngakoue, who has a franchise tender of $17 million sitting out there that he has not signed. The Vikings were already strapped for cash. This was a team that saw a mass exodus of their defense this offseason, especially in the secondary. They also lose defensive end Everson Griffin. There are a lot of questions as to how this team was going to circumvent all of the losses. They had 15 draft picks this year, but it's hard to have the young guys come in and contribute right away. And so there are a lot of questions as to whether the Vikings would be able to pick up where they left off a season ago and be back in the postseason. This move here really takes a huge step forward towards getting back to the postseason if you're the Minnesota Vikings because of all the losses on the defense. You really killed two birds with one stone here. Now let's talk about the financial ramifications and what they'll probably have to do to make this thing work. But as I've told the youth of America, when you're out shopping, don't shop based off of the shoes you have in your closet. You shop and buy items based off of the look and the feel and how you feel about that shirt or those jeans. If you like that shirt, you may not have any shoes to match it in the closet, but you'll figure that out down the line. Just buy the shirt, put it in the closet, and eventually you'll end up with some shoes that match that item in the closet. Same thing here with the Minnesota Vikings. This was too good of a deal to pass up. To give up a second-round pick to get an elite prime of his career pass rusher for only a second rounder and a conditional fifth, you gotta feel like you're stealing here if you're the Minnesota Vikings. And so, yeah, they're strapped for cash. They're gonna have to move some money around. More likely than not, Riley Reiff will be the candidate that they approach and say, hey, look, we need you to take a restructured deal or we're going to probably have to cut you. It's tough to do that this late in the camp, especially when Ezra Cleveland has been working primarily at guard to this point in camp. They're a rookie out of Boise State. But, you know, if you got to do what you got to do, because Riley Reiff is not a part of the long-term future of this organization, and a lot of Vikings fans would like it if he wasn't a part of the short-term future either. But they're going to have to do something. They'll approach a player or two about restructuring their deals to help fit Yannick Ngakoue under the cap. What it sounds like right now, by all reports, is that he'll sign a one-year deal upwards of $12 to $13 million, which will get him into Minnesota for this upcoming season. What will be interesting is whether the Vikings will be able to re-sign him or not. Remember, they've got issues with Dalvin Cook wanting a new deal himself. They had to trade away one of their big-time wide receivers in the offseason already in Stephon Diggs. There are a lot of question marks about this Vikings football team, and can they repeat the success of last season by making the postseason, winning a playoff game, and getting to the divisional round? Well, this is a step in the right direction because the secondary, to me, very young, very talented, but yet very young with all of the guys that moved on. There could have been issues back there. There still may be. And also up front, you know, Danielle Hunter is one of the elite young pass rushers in this game. Teams are very hip to what he's doing in Minnesota now. I think he might have snuck up on some teams early in his career. That is no longer the case. Everyone's aware of just how good Danielle Hunter is. And so without Everson Griffin or someone that is of some kind of ilk on the other side, teams are just going to start sliding protection Danielle Hunter's way and try to take him out of the game and force someone else to beat them up front. Now that is not as easy to do because of what you are putting on the opposite side of him here in another young elite pass rusher. One of my favorite pass rushers to watch in this league in Yannick Ngakoue. And again, going into the prime of his career, you're talking about a guy that's young, dumb, hungry, and talented as all get out. This is a guy that can beat you with speed. He can beat you with quickness. He can beat you with a bevy of moves, including a vicious, flavor delicious, poetic scripture spin move. He can beat you with speed to power. There's a lot that comes in the Yannick Ngakoue package. And now you've got one of the elite tag team pass rushing duos in the league if you can lock this guy up long term. And that's what's going to really determine the true value of this deal for the Vikings. Because if this is a one-year rental, if this is a one-and-done shot with Yannick Ngakoue and he leaves in free agency next offseason, then I think the balance of power of this trade shifts to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But if you're able to lock him up long term and make this thing a tag team partnership for years to come with Danielle Hunter on one side and Yannick Ngakoue on the other, I think you've got the makings of having an elite pass rush for many, many years to come, and an elite defense for that matter. Because when I talked about killing two birds with one stone earlier, I talked about, and I'm referencing essentially, the secondary could be an issue this year. But you minimize a lot of that by getting to the quarterback, and now you have two guys that are elite in that regard at getting to the quarterback. And so that's going to lessen the impact of the secondary and some of the losses back there. And so to me, this is a big move because of what it means for this defense. I think the offense is going to be fine. Yeah, you lost Stephon Diggs, but you added a guy in Justin Jefferson that I think if he's healthy, he's going to come in and produce big numbers for you. I think you're going to be fine on the offensive side of the football. I was worried about this defense. I probably shouldn't be because Mike Zimmer is running the show, and a Mike Zimmer coached and ran defense usually performs better than expected, even when you're thinking there's not enough talent potentially there or they're just young. Now adding in a Yannick Ngakoue, I think that lessens some of my fears for this defense because he's an elite rusher and you're adding him alongside another elite young rusher in Danielle Hunter. I think the Vikings got exponentially better on the defensive side of the football. And to think they did it only really offering up a second-round pick in 2021. And you've got to understand that this is going to be a unique draft unlike any other in 2021, where teams might be a little bit more willing to part ways with first and second-round picks because of the uncertainty of a lot of these players, because of not seeing a lot of these guys since the 2019 college football season, because this is going to be a very unique process. I think teams might be a little bit more willing to part ways with early round draft choices because of the uncertainty of college football this year and because of the unique process that these players will be going through. A lot of these guys are going to be working out on their own, not having played any organized football for essentially 2 years. I think teams are going to be a little bit more apprehensive to, or not apprehensive, but I think teams are going to be a little bit more willing to trade for a known commodity like the Vikings did here in Yannick Ngakoue, knowing that, hey, we're getting a known young elite commodity for a second-round pick, not something you can guarantee yourself in the 2021 draft or any draft really for that matter. But I think this draft in particular is going to be really interesting. But you get to the Jacksonville Jaguars side of things, and here's why I think it's a really solid trade for them as well, because you look at it from this standpoint. They didn't have, any power or leverage in this situation. Their backs were up against the wall. This wasn't like the Jets trading away Jamal Adams for 2 first-rounders in the sense that, the Jets still held a lot of the chips there because Adams had to play for the Jets. Either he was going to play or he wasn't going to play football at all. And he was going to be, fined if he wasn't going to play. And so he was going to play football is essentially what I'm telling you. He could have been as disgruntled as he wanted to be, but he was going to play. Either he was going to play or he's going to pay for not playing. And he wasn't going to do that. So the Jets held all the power, which is why they were able to garner so much draft capital for Jamal Adams. Whereas the Jaguars weren't in that position. Yannick Ngakoue didn't sign his franchise tag. He was not obligated to be in camp. He was not obligated to play for the Jaguars this year. He could have sat out this entire season. They did not want to deal with that distraction. He's not in the long-term future of this football team. They're going to move on from him in the offseason. And so why not get something for this guy in return while he's still got some type of value towards you? Because again, if you allow this season to take place and then you try to move him at the trade deadline, you're going to find that he's going to be less valuable because teams will be looking at him as essentially a 2-month rental at that point. You'll really be devaluing what you can get from him. And so to get a second round pick, to add to the 2 firsts that you already have, remember, you're still cooping the benefits of that Jalen Ramsey trade with the Rams. So to have 2 first-rounders, to now have 2 second-rounders, you're locked, stocked, and shocked, ready to rock and roll in the 2021 draft. Not to mention, you're adding an additional pick in the 2022 draft that could easily escalate to a 3rd-round selection. And I don't know what the conditions are for that pick to go from a 5th to a 3rd. But if it has anything to do with sacks or games played or production, he's going to most likely hit that benchmark if he's healthy. And so that pick, more likely than not, going to end up a 3rd rounder. And you look up and you've got a ton of draft capital to maneuver the draft if you like. And if not, you pick up a bunch of good football players more likely than not. And I've always said this about the Jaguars. Say what you want about the way they're coached. Say what you want about the lack of production in terms of wins over the years. But you can never talk about this team not being talented. The Jaguars are always one of the more talented teams in the league. They've struggled at the quarterback position. And as we know, if you don't get it done at that particular position, it's going to hold back the rest of your roster. But I've talked about the Jaguars drafting well every single year. There are a handful of teams that just get it in the draft. The Ravens, the Jaguars, the Bengals, the Cowboys. I talk about these teams every single year. I love Dave Caldwell and what he does in the draft routinely. And so you hand him this type of ammunition. I can't wait to see what he's going to do with all of these draft selections. And so I think this is a great trade by the Jacksonville Jaguars to get something for a guy that wasn't going to be a part of your short-term nor long-term future, knowing that you were up against it, because the closer you get to the season, the less likely it becomes that you're going to move this guy if you don't do something now. Once the season hits, it becomes a lot less likely that someone's going to be willing to trade for him or at least give you the kind of compensation that you got here. And there were rumors that you might have been able to get something a little bit better during the 2020 NFL draft. I heard that the Raiders were really interested in Yannick Ngakoue. I don't know what the compensation looked like then, and were you able to get a little bit more had you moved him back in April? Maybe. I don't know the answer to that. But at the end of the day, to get a 2nd rounder and potentially a 3rd rounder for a guy that wasn't going to be here, it's better than getting nothing. And that's how you have to look at this. You know, as a fan of a team that seems to botch this process quite often and not maximize the value of a guy that's not a part of your future moving forward, to see a team get what they can and get out of there, I commend the Jaguars for doing this. And so to me, it's a win-win for all parties involved. I think we'll see who actually wins this deal down the line, because I think if you're the Vikings, you feel like you stole an elite pass rusher. But again, right now you're renting him for 1 year. And if you can't get him to sign on the dotted line next offseason and make this thing a long-term deal and a long-term situation, then I think this deal kind of shifts, and the power of balance of this deal kind of shifts to the Jaguars getting 2 picks out of Yannick Ngakoue, who wasn't going to be in Jacksonville anyway. So I think this is a good deal and trade for both teams involved. I think the Vikings get the immediate dividends from this draft, getting an elite pass rusher, a young elite pass rusher added to their defense right away in 2020. For the Jaguars, they start to reap the benefits of this in 2021 with all the draft capital that they now have in the first 2 rounds of that draft. It is amazing what the Jaguars will be able to do if they want to move around. Let's say Gardner Minshew isn't the guy and they realize that they've got to do something. And let's say they end up 6-10 this year, which puts them at the 9th or 10th pick in the draft, but they have a guy that they want at the top of the draft. They could easily, with all the draft capital that they now have, they could easily make a move to get to number 1, number 2, to get whomever that quarterback they desire is in the draft. So, you know, we'll see what happens with the Jacksonville Jaguars, but they've now got all the ammunition they need to do whatever it is they feel like they need to do in the 2021 draft. And so I'm your man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. Until next time, you guys take care. Remember, also got merch at LouieTeeNetwork.net. Also, it's down in the description, so got merch available now. Make sure you're checking that out. Make sure that you're also checking out all of the exclusives that we have available. We've got the Soul Survivor pool, we've got the Winners and Losers pool, and we've got the weekly Pick'em pool. So you guys check out all of that content up on the site, LouieTeeNetwork.net. I've also done videos on those, so check out the video catalog to find out how you can be a part of the Louie T Network in the upcoming 2020 NFL season. I'm your man, Louie T, signing off until next time. You guys have a good one. Take care.